The steady drone of engines filled the first-class cabin as Flight 892 cut through the morning sky. Leather seats stretched in rows, occupied by business people absorbed in their digital worlds. Among them sat Marcus Chen, a man whose appearance didn't match the polished surroundings. His faded jacket and worn sneakers stood out against the expensive luggage and designer brief suits. His 6-year-old daughter Emma nestled against him, clutching a ragged teddy bear. Her eyes were puffy from recent tears, her small frame trembling occasionally. The seat beside them held Catherine Sterling, CEO of a prominent tech conglomerate. Her designer pantsuit was immaculate, her expression sharp as she glanced at the child with barely concealed irritation. Emma whimpered softly, and Catherine sighed dramatically. "First class is meant for professionals," she muttered coldly. Marcus said nothing, staring straight ahead. He was a former Navy pilot, now working as an airport mechanic after his wife's tragic accident. The expensive ticket had depleted his modest savings, but Emma needed specialized treatment in Boston. Time was running out. Catherine shifted uncomfortably as Emma sniffled again. "Some people really don't belong here," she whispered harshly. Marcus clenched his jaw, pretending not to hear. He'd grown accustomed to judgment since becoming a widower. The flight attendants glided past, serving champagne and gourmet meals. Everything seemed routine until the aircraft suddenly shuddered violently. Passengers screamed as laptops crashed to the floor. The cabin lights flickered ominously. An alarm echoed from somewhere ahead. The captain's voice crackled urgently over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a critical situation." Panic erupted instantly throughout the cabin. Oxygen masks dropped from overhead compartments, swinging like ominous pendulums. The aircraft lurched sideways, throwing passengers against their restraints. Coffee spilled across expensive clothing. Briefcases tumbled into the aisle. Catherine's perfectly composed demeanor shattered as terror gripped her features. She grabbed the armrest with white-knuckled intensity, her earlier confidence evaporating completely. The captain's voice returned, strained and desperate. "We're experiencing catastrophic mechanical failure. All flight controls are compromised. If anyone aboard has piloting experience, military or civilian, please identify yourself immediately." The announcement hung heavy in the turbulent air. Faces turned anxiously, searching for salvation among the panicked passengers. The captain himself emerged from the cockpit, his uniform disheveled, eyes scanning desperately through the rows. He stopped abruptly at Marcus's seat, recognition flashing across his worried face. "Sir, you're Marcus Chen. Navy aviation background according to our passenger manifest?" Catherine's head whipped around, mouth falling open in shock. The shabby-looking man beside her, the father she'd dismissed so cruelly, was suddenly their only hope. Marcus's expression transformed instantly. The weariness vanished, replaced by steely focus and trained composure. "Yes, Captain. Former F-18 pilot. What's our status?" The captain's voice cracked with stress. "Complete hydraulic system failure. We've lost steering authority and one engine is overheating dangerously. Nearest emergency field is 25 minutes away. I desperately need experienced help." Marcus gently lifted Emma, handing her to a nearby flight attendant. "Keep her safe," he said firmly. He glanced briefly at Catherine, whose eyes now reflected dawning horror and guilt. Without hesitation, Marcus followed the captain forward. Alarms shrieked continuously, each one signaling another critical system failure. The co-pilot sat frozen, overwhelmed by the cascading emergencies. Years of intensive training surged back through his muscles and mind. "Systems report," he commanded sharply. The captain rattled off their desperate situation in rapid-fire detail. Marcus scanned the instruments with practiced efficiency, his mind calculating trajectories and possibilities at lightning speed. "We have asymmetric thrust and no tail control," Marcus assessed quickly. "We need manual override on everything and prepare for unpowered approach. Can you actually pull this off?" Marcus's eyes hardened with determination. "We're going to find out together." His hands gripped the control yoke firmly. The aircraft bucked wildly as they hit severe turbulence. Outside the cockpit windows, dark storm clouds gathered menacingly on the horizon. Rain began pelting the windscreen. The captain struggled with the throttle, while Marcus fought the unresponsive controls. Every adjustment required enormous physical effort. Marcus manually adjusted wing flaps, recalculated their descent angle, and bypassed the failed hydraulic systems entirely. Each second became a battle against physics itself. Back in the cabin, passengers held each other tightly. Children cried. Adults prayed. Catherine sat motionless, her mind replaying every contemptuous word she'd spoken earlier. The man she'd judged unworthy was now fighting desperately to save everyone aboard. Minutes felt like eternities as the crippled aircraft plummeted toward Earth. Marcus's arms burned with exhaustion, muscles screaming as he wrestled the stubborn controls. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes. The control yoke fought back violently with every adjustment, like trying to steer a freight train manually. "We're losing altitude too fast," the captain shouted over the cacophony of alarms. Marcus made rapid calculations, compensating for wind shear and the failing engine. "Adjusting angle of attack, reduce speed gradually. We can't risk a stall." His voice remained eerily calm, despite the impossible circumstances. Outside, the landscape rushed closer with terrifying speed. Trees, buildings, highways became increasingly distinct through breaks in the clouds. The aircraft shuddered continuously, metal groaning under impossible stress. Black smoke now poured from the damaged engine, trailing behind them like a funeral shroud. "Emergency field dead ahead," the captain announced, pointing through the rain-streaked windscreen. Marcus could see the runway, impossibly narrow from this altitude. They were approaching too fast, too steep, with virtually no control. "Hydraulics are completely gone. This landing will be rough," Marcus warned grimly. "Tell the cabin crew to prepare for emergency impact." The announcement echoed through the passenger compartment. Flight attendants moved swiftly, ensuring everyone was properly secured. Catherine clutched her armrest, eyes squeezed shut, lips moving in silent prayer. Emma cried out for her daddy. The ground rushed upward. Marcus pulled back on the yoke with every ounce of remaining strength. The runway filled their vision completely. There was no turning back now. "Brace! Brace! Brace!" the captain screamed into the intercom. Tires exploded on contact, sending rubber fragments flying. Sparks erupted beneath the fuselage like fireworks. The cabin filled with screams and the horrifying sound of tearing metal. Sideways, his arms felt uncontrollably toward the edge of the runway. "We're not stopping!" Marcus made one final desperate adjustment to the remaining engine thrust. The aircraft groaned, shuddered violently, then began slowing. Inch by agonizing inch, their momentum decreased. Finally, mercifully, they stopped. Total silence filled the cabin for several heartbeats. Nobody moved, uncertain whether they'd survived or were experiencing their final moments. Then reality crashed back. People began crying, laughing, sobbing with overwhelming relief. The captain turned to Marcus, hands shaking violently. "You just saved 238 lives. I don't know how to thank you." Marcus exhaled deeply, every muscle trembling with exhaustion. "Just doing what anyone with my training would do," he said quietly. Emergency crews swarmed the aircraft immediately. Fire trucks surrounded them, foam spraying across the damaged plane. Ambulances stood ready, passengers evacuated down emergency slides, many on shaky legs. Emma broke free from the flight attendant and ran straight into her father's arms as he emerged from the cockpit. "Daddy!" she sobbed. He held her tightly, tears finally streaming down his own face. "We're okay, sweetheart. We're okay." Catherine descended the emergency slide on trembling legs, her expensive clothes disheveled and stained. She stood on the tarmac, watching Marcus cradle his daughter. guilt crushing her chest like a physical weight. Everything she'd valued, status, appearance, success, suddenly felt hollow and meaningless. She approached slowly, hesitantly. "Mr. Chen," she began, her voice breaking, "I owe you more than an apology. I judged you terribly." Marcus looked at her with gentle understanding rather than anger. People often see surfaces rather than substance. We're all carrying burdens others can't see. Sometimes the hardest thing is remembering that. Catherine's tears flowed freely now. "Is there anything I can do for you or Emma?" "That's enough." Catherine nodded, something fundamental shifting inside her. For the first time in years, her carefully constructed walls crumbled completely. She watched Marcus and Emma walk toward the waiting ambulance and whispered, "The man I thought didn't deserve first class was the only one who truly belonged there." Within days, the story spread worldwide. Media outlets called Marcus a hero. Social media celebrated his courage. But Marcus ignored the attention, focused only on Emma's upcoming treatment. Her surgery proved successful, her prognosis excellent. Weeks later, sitting beside her hospital bed, watching the sunset paint the sky golden, Emma asked, "Daddy, will you fly planes again?" Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "Maybe someday, but right now, being your dad is the most important job in the world." He knew that true courage wasn't about dramatic rescues. It was about showing up, being present, choosing love over judgment every single day.